I'm on my show! Hello, hello. Just waiting for Skylar. There she is. There she is. Hello, Skylar. Let's make you a producer. Let's get you on video. Let's get rid of our wait bot. Hello.
Hello, Madre.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Today, we are talking about failure.
That's a hard one.
I know. But the good thing about failure is there's really no such thing as failure. And so that's kind of what we're going to get into today. Hello, Joy. Thanks for being here. Hello, Ray and Woody. Thanks so much for being here so far. If you have any questions throughout the show, feel free to raise your hand or ask to come up on stage or ask a question, whatever you want to do. Skylar and I are here for you. If you haven't been to our show yet, this is Keeping It Real with my daughter, Skylar, and myself. And you are how old? 23 now?
Yeah, I'm old. 23.
Ugh. Insane. Anyways, tonight we're talking about failure. And the reason I love this topic so much is because to me, it almost feels like, I don't know, like a beautiful loop, like a kick in the ass just to get you going in the right direction. Like, it's like, nope, not this direction. We're going to go in a different direction. And so for me, whenever I hear the word failure or feel failure, I know it's just a steering wheel. And that's why I love failure so much. What'd you say?
Taking you to the right direction.
Yeah. I mean,
but it kind of feels like the end of the world in the moment.
In the moment, and this is the thing. It's easy to talk about it when it's kind of like this, like we're over here talking about failure. But I will tell you, one of the things that has been so life-changing to me are these kind of little tools that I use to remind me that it's not the end of the world, because I'm the type of person, and people always laugh, that like, I'm your girl if you need a tracheotomy with a big pen, but tell me, you're not going to get paid till Monday and I'm a dead woman. So I handle very large stressors very well, but it's like the little day-to-days where I'm just thrown for a loop. So I really glom onto tools that help me to get through the day-to-day. And the day-to-day could be, oh, hi, Meredith, you went below your balance in your checking account, or you screwed up something in your calendar with an appointment with a client, or,
just small little hiccups throughout the day.
Oh, forget it. I'm just can't. And so I love good tools and good visuals. And I also like the idea of, 2020, hindsight is 2020, because it gives me clarity that everything that I'm doing is always serving a greater purpose and a greater good, taking me exactly where I need to go. And failure is no different, because it's tap, tap, tap. Nope, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm actually started practicing, kind of realizing this is not something I want to do. I don't feel good doing this. So I don't have to usually make it all the way to failure. Usually at this point in my life, I can kind of like hit the brakes at, and I'm not going to do it anymore. It doesn't feel good. So I tend to not, but to me, failure is always a welcome moment, because I'm turning the steering wheel faster than, whatever it is. Have you ever noticed that? Like, to me, your biggest failure, which, turned out to be so great, was switching your majors.
Yeah, no, that is very true. So switching majors for me, I went into college biology major, came out a business major, and to me that felt like the absolute end of the world. Like everyone going into college told me, "Hey Skylar, you should probably be a business major. Like you have the business mindset, you don't care about bio." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm smart.
Gonna be a doctor.
Gonna be a doctor." Because smart doctor added two and two together equals makes sense for an 18-year-old, right? So I feel like for me, the moment felt like such a failure. I felt like I don't want to do bio anymore. I don't want to be a doctor. This was like a huge like pit in my stomach of everyone's going to judge me. They're going to think that I'm changing because I'm failing, like literally failing. And so taking that moment, and I remember
Yeah, what did the failure come like? How did that come to, I am turning the steering wheel on this, pre-med track? And like, cuz I think that so many people like, "Oh, well you just changed majors." But in that moment of kind of recognizing that bio might not be for you and this might not be the best track, because PS, if you're going to be in medical school, like basically your whole life is biology, structure and function, anatomy and physiology. And so like when you started recognizing, hey, I'm not getting straight A's in this, right? And that steering wheel kind of started to push on you, meaning you were starting to feel the pressure of the failure. And then you're like, well, maybe I need to turn the wheel here a little bit. How did that like kind of play out? And then how did those emotions, like how long did it take you before you were like, oh, thank God? Because you were traumatized for probably a month, if I remember correctly.
yeah, no, for sure. It was a big it was a big step. I feel like to me someone just looked at me and they were like, "I'm a business major." And I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "Am I stupid?" And I was like, "No, but you started as a business major." And like in my head, like because I started bio, I blame this on you. Cuz I started something, I had to finish it.
Oh,
So so taking and seeing that, hey, like just because you're not in bio, you're not finishing it, you're not doing the end, and like you said, switching it, realizing that, hey, this new path is really exciting and awesome and going to be great, and I just have to get over that hump.
yeah.
And so for me, the getting over the hump is a lot of talking to yourself, letting yourself know that you're okay, that
Yeah.
it's okay to not be the norm. And at this point, this is your sophomore year in college, everyone was starting to go on their own path. Like it wasn't just this high school, everyone's streamlining into their majors. Like people were dropping out, people were going into, to be electricians, people were doing everything and on their own path. So for me, seeing that, hey, it's not a one set journey, and then realizing the hump.
Yeah. And I mean, so many people, I think I had this conversation with you at the time, but I talk to people every day, all day long with coaching, right? And I don't remember where I read this. It might have been either listening and talking to someone while coaching them or something that I just happened to read somewhere. But it was a situation where a younger person was talking to an older person, and it was like, I wish I would have listened to myself 20 years ago, but now at 40, it's too late, right? It's too late to change my career. And someone said, but what if you live and work till you're 80? Now, instead of wasting 20 years, you've wasted 60 years, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I mean, not for nothing, but I remember when I was married to your dad, and I was like, I could either get a divorce when I'm 28 or 68. So I think 28 makes more sense to me than waiting, because it felt like it was inevitable. And I think so many people stay in the wrong career, they stay in the wrong marriage. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be a bad marriage. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad career, but it starts to get itchy and uncomfortable, and you know you're not where you're supposed to be. And people think, and we've talked about this 100 times on the show, people think, well, I just need to stick it out. I just need to suffer. It's about seeing if I have the stick to itiveness. And the fact of the matter is, it's never about suffering. I will say that a year or so ago, Jim and I have been married, I think it's 15 years in June. I'm not sure. I think it is. And it was like a year ago. I remember I just felt like, eh. It just felt bland, beige. I mean, he'd been home almost for a year and a half in the house with COVID, and we couldn't leave. We couldn't go anywhere. There was no excitement. They couldn't even go out to dinner. And so I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But I remember thinking, eh. So there's a difference between meh and kind of like, the ebb and flow of a relationship, the difficult days of a job. There's a difference between a difficult day and holy shit, I'm so uncomfortable. This job is not for me anymore. This major in school is not for me. This relationship is not for me. This where I live is not for me. And really kind of giving it your kind of go and recognizing that I'm really literally failing at this, and I either need to get help at it or I need to get out of it.
I feel like a hard thing for me was realizing the difference between what like society was saying and what I thought was right, and my own voice of because you're mentioning unhappiness rather than just failing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like distinguishing those two voices is a major difficulty. How do you go about that?
Well, like for myself, I spent countless hours and thousands of dollars learning how to be a past life regressionist. I have to say that in all of my education of what I do, it was probably the most life-changing education that I have ever gone through. And it literally changed the path and direction of my whole life as far as coaching and spiritual medium and intuitiveness and all that stuff. However, I hate doing it. I hate sitting in a room for 5 hours and doing past life regressions with people. It's just way too long for me to sit still and be quiet. I would rather talk and get into it and, help people in that way. I'll do them, but it's not my favorite. Many people might look at that as a failure, and it's only discomfort. That's all it is. I can do it. I'm not necessarily a failure at it, but there's also kind of like, what are they called? Failed adoptions, where you are
Failed foster parent.
Yeah, failed foster parent, because you actually end up adopting either the animal or the kid or whatever, right? So it's a failed fostering. So there's a lot of failures. I like to look at all failures as kind of a positive in that way. It's all kind of just like, you learn something about yourself. You learn something that you don't want to be a lawyer or a doctor. You learn that this relationship isn't for you. And I think so many people fear the idea of a failed relationship, a failed marriage, a failed go. And I heard something the other day, which is why I chose this topic. And wherever I need to start writing down where I hear shit, because I don't mean to like take someone else's thing. I do give them credit that I heard it somewhere. I heard they said, if you're going to try anything, you have to be willing to fail at it. And I love that idea, because you're going in with a more, I don't know, it's not the end of the world. You're like, hey, I'm
bar-bearing.
Huh?
It's less abrasive.
It's less abrasive. It's just like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. I think that this is a great opportunity. I'm going to learn something about myself, about my relationship, about the direction that I want to go in. It could be something as stupid as painting your fingernails green. I'm not a fan. I never need to do it again. I learned something, when I was 16, that I don't need green nail polish in my life ever again. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we need to start looking at life instead of saying, oh my God, I'm a failure. Because what we're seeing, especially in young adults and teens, and I do believe that this is an epidemic for actually then the drug addiction. I really do. Is this humongous pressure to be perfect, the pressure to be successful, the pressure to get it right the first time, to know. And I've told you 100,000 times, like, now is the time to screw up. In your 20s, try everything. Start a business, fly to Europe, date all the wrong guys, get black lacquer furniture and black, like, you just try all the mistakes. All the mistakes. When I coach parents, I say anything your kid does, birth to 18 is a blessing, which is why I'm very against charging children as adults, because we've removed this understanding that we are broken, fallible humans that need to sometimes put our hand on the stove, as awkward as that might look as an outsider. We might be like, Skylar, why the hell would you want to go into biology? That's the dumbest thing in the whole world. You should be a business major. You have a business mind, and you have to put your hand on the stove. You had to put your hand on the stove, because guess what? When you're 60, you would have looked at me and said, I kind of wanted to be a doctor, and you kept me from it. And now I can look at you and go, oh, no, I didn't, because you tried it. And I think that people don't allow themselves this expansion and this place to grow inside of allowing themselves to fail. So good.
I think that we can even see this in me hanging on for dear life to the job that I absolutely hated. I mean, everybody and their brother just kept telling me, you got to turn the store around. That's all you got to do. Finish it out. And in my head, that was literally all I had to do. I was like, I just got to do it. Something in me just has to do it. And I made myself miserable for months.
Physically sick.
Physically sick.
Physically sick.
Trying to accomplish something because I didn't want to be seen as a failure at work.
Yeah.
And only in the moment did I look at myself and go, is it your happiness that is worth this? Or is it you just giving up, and not necessarily giving up, but giving up and accepting the fact that people can call you a failure. People can say you didn't complete it. You didn't do. I don't care. I am doing A-okay over here as a failure.
I learned. Right. And isn't that the beauty though? Like you went in, I've seen what I need to see, and it's a no from me, right?
It's a no.
It's a no from me. And like, that's the thing, is we are so hell bent on these cookie cutter ideas, the cookie cutter life that we need. And we talked about this, maybe it was last week or the week before. We talked about the idea of, what worked for my generation. You graduate high school, you go to 4 years of college, you get a career, you find your husband, you have your kids, you work in the same job for 30 years, you retire, you die. And the fact of the matter is your generation, and now even, it's starting to spread up, is we're starting to recognize that, there's no pensions anymore. I actually might have talked about this on Strong Boss Bitches on Tuesday. There's no pensions anymore. We don't have that stay in this job for 30 years and there's going to be this great payout and everything's going to be super and you're going to be treated really well. You're going to have 8 weeks paid vacation. That does not exist. Mm-hmm. That ship has sailed. And so we need to reframe success. And I watched a kid the other day. He was talking about how he was, moved out to Silicon Valley and he started his job at $60,000 a year, got recruited, jumped up to 120 grand a year, got recruited 6 months later, jumped up to like 180. And by the end of 5 years, he was making over $200,000 a year. But if he would have said to himself,
gotta stick it out.
I got to stick it out because I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to be a quitter at this first, second, third, fourth job. He would still be making $60,000 a year right now and probably, 2 weeks paid vacation and maybe average medical benefits. Who the hell knows, right? And so I say this to women and people all the time. I just did a post on TikTok the other day. If you're in an unhealthy, I'm not saying beige this week. I'm not saying anticlimactic this week. I'm saying an unhealthy, year after year unhealthy relationship. All right. Getting out is not failure. There is a whole life waiting for you. A whole life is waiting for you. Not that there's anything wrong with your dad, but there's a whole life that was waiting for me when I decided that it wasn't working anymore. And your dad and I are great friends, and he's the best. But he had a whole life waiting for him too. He had 2 boys waiting for him. He had a new wife waiting for him. And so we need to understand that sometimes when something isn't going right, and that's the thing. I love what's happening right here. This is the thing. We know how to do this. I know how to do the unhealthy relationship. You knew how to do your last job. I know how to do this. I know what it looks like. I know the people. I know how much money roughly I'm making. I know how to do today. I know how to do this. It sucks. I'm not happy, but it's not
comfortable.
It's comfortable, right? And when you talk to women or men that are in abusive, unhealthy, toxic relationships or jobs or situations or living arrangements, whatever it is,
It's comfortable.
they're more afraid of the unknown.
I mean, sometimes bearing the fact that in relationships you absolutely can't leave or jobs you can't quit.
Right.
Barring those situations, if you can leave, if you can switch careers, it is something that you should honestly, it takes a bit. It takes time to look into yourself, to turn that mirror and say, what does Skylar Shagaback want?
Yeah.
What will make me happy in this moment? And to go from there and to invest in yourself, invest in your future, make that career step down if possible.
If
go
necessary.
and be what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Because the failure is okay.
I mean, and it could be a lateral move. Maybe it's just a location. Maybe you work at Walmart and you want to go work at Costco or at Target, or you want to, start a side hustle and you're not really sure and you're afraid. Well, what if I fail at Uber driving? Or what if I fail at this, starting this craft business? Or maybe you start a cleaning company out of your, and it's you and a girlfriend and you guys are going to start a cleaning company. I mean, this doesn't mean that it's going to be in Silicon Valley and you're going to get recruited for double the pay. This is a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, when I first started doing I just call it Meredith stuff, I was like, who the hell in my family? I mean, my dad's a lawyer. My mom's a college instructor. Everyone in my family is, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, Episcopalian, like everyone's normal. And then I start doing energy medicine and then psychic medium. Everyone had to think I was out of my mind, and I just had to do what was being leading me, fearlessly leading me in a direction and not be afraid of, well, what if no one wants to talk to me? What if no one wants to use me what if no one wants to show up and watch my shows? What if no one wants to listen to my podcast? Now I'm the top 2.5% podcast of the whole world. You know what I mean? And that was just 70 podcasts ago, which by the way, tomorrow's podcast is insane. The next 2 podcasts, buckle up because they're so good. But the thing of it is like we need to stop pretending that there is some cookie cutter idea of what is perfect and what failure is, and that if you don't follow through, the 30-year career, the never ending marriage, the all of that. And guess what? This is what I'm looking at right now, and I love this so much. The desire for people to not think that you are a failure. So perfection, right? Instagram, right? The desire
I
for
call it the Miami lifestyle.
the
The
desire for the
Miami
Miami
lifestyle.
lifestyle, perfection. Think how sick that makes us, how unhealthy, because we're afraid to ever be vulnerable. We're afraid to ever say that we don't want to do this job. I mean, I had a friend, I have a friend who was a influencer, and we talked, and she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. But because her job was so in the public, if she would switch, then it looks like she failed, right? She must not be making any money. Who in the world would stop being an influencer? And what it was is she was just sick and tired of putting her life out there. She was sick and tired. I mean, the pace is unyielding when it comes to being an influencer. And so think how sick the perfection lifestyle, the fear of failure lifestyle, the fear of failure, personally, socially, etc., it keeps us in unhealthy relationships. Our parents, think about our parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents who stayed in physically abusive, unhealthy marriages because divorce was a taboo, because no one in my family's ever got a divorce. I mean, thanks, mom, for getting a divorce, because it removed the failure taboo of getting a divorce. Think about how interesting that is. Think about how just allowing and opening the door to end a marriage versus not. Think of people that you know who no one in their family's ever been divorced and their parents have been married for 50
Well, I
years.
think that kind of highlights the values in, for me in that moment of college career, changing majors was the biggest thing in the world. I'm sure someone who was 45 did not give a shit. For me, leaving my job was the biggest thing in the world. I'm sure no one gave a shit.
Nope.
For you, getting a divorce was the biggest thing in the world, and no one in the world.
Well,
Maybe someone was like, fuck that bitch. But in the grand scheme of things, in the whole of reality, no one sees Skylar Shagaback as less than.
No one cares.
No one cares.
It's literally a story that we tell ourselves, that everyone's paying attention. And I love the idea, like, literally no one cares what you're doing because they're so self-absorbed with yourself. Like, think about your day right now. How really focused are you on people changing their majors, breaking up with their boyfriends, getting a divorce, changing jobs? Literally think about the world around you. You literally do not care. We do not care about what anyone is doing around you at all. You're more concerned with, what are you doing tonight?
Me, myself.
Yeah, me, myself, and I. And so there's so much freedom in that, though. Think of the freedom in full recognition.
It's like when you walk into the gym. I remember the first day I was like, Kleber, everyone's going to think that I'm looking dumb. And he goes, Skylar, go one day at the gym. We went to the gym. He asked me afterwards. He goes, how many times did you look around at anyone there? And I was like, not a single time. He goes, there you go. You're fine.
Exactly.
Live your life and do whatever the hell you want to do. Yeah. Because you're not looking around. And the people who are looking around, do we really care what they have to say?
No, because they're crazy. Although I have to admit, that's why I have to have a gym in my house, because I am a crazy person that watches people work out because they have bad form. I am that lunatic, but it's my dad's fault. So I psychotically want to go over there, and when they're doing back exercises, I'm like, you really want to put your thumb on the outside?
Wait, I was crying to you at the gym, and you were literally correcting me on my form, and I was literally crying.
No, literally,
on FaceTime, I'm like working out at the gym, crying. So already it's already a pity party. And she's like, your form is off.
I can't. It makes me mentally insane to watch someone have bad form when they're working out at the gym. But we can blame this on my dad, because he taught me that form is everything when it comes to lifting weight. So you have no idea. And this is why I cannot have a gym membership, because I spend the entire hour fighting with myself to not go correct people.
That's your failure. That is
no, literally a sickness. But I corrected my failure by putting a gym in the basement. It's just a little gym, but it's mine. So yeah, so back to this idea though that no one gives a shit, and in the scheme of things, none of it matters. The thing that popped up for me is there was a big kind of, I don't even know if you want to call it I don't know. There was a lot of videos going around about kids that were the children of fighting parents or abusive parents or moms who didn't leave, and trying, these kids as adults now were like, leave. You are not doing your kids any favors. And how many people, I will tell you, the amount of women, 40s, 50s, 60s, who have been wanting to leave since their kid was born, in kindergarten, in third grade, in middle school, and now the kids are moved out, and now it's like, well, it's kind of like, what's the point now? And I'm like,
how else am I
don't
going to make
know.
friends?
You might live another 29 years and you're going to be with this guy who you literally have wanted to divorce for 25 years. I don't know. If it's me, I want one day of happiness, one day that I don't hate the person that I live with, and I actually did a video about that. Like, if you want your spouse to die, literally, it's time to get a divorce. It's time. And so the thing of it is we need to start recognizing that no one gives a shit about your failures. And the only shit you should give about your failures is recognizing that it is you turning the steering wheel to go in another direction that's better for you.
And sometimes you got to fail twice before you get it right.
1000%. I mean,
you just keep going in circles.
I know, just keep, right? I look back at just being married, the first time, and I remember, oh my God. So your dad worked so much, as you well know, right? He still works a lot. And I remember I would be like, oh, there's socks on the floor. I should probably call him at work and let him know that he shouldn't leave his socks on the floor. Shit like that. And you learn as a wife. And so then you get a divorce and then you date people, and all those people that you date, those are not failures just because those relationships end. Those are successes because you learned about yourself and what you do and don't like in a person. My mom used to, and I will tell you, this is the one thing about my mom that literally pushed me over the edge. She used to give me a lot of shit about dating guys. It's this one. It's that one. You date every loser. And I look at all of those people that I dated as opportunities for me to learn and fail and turn the steering wheel. And I look at my relationship with my husband, Jim, and I am so happy for all of those failures because those failures allowed me to get to where I am today. And I look at that with all of my life.
But I think that a huge thing that people don't learn from and that they don't recognize and they stay in the place of failing is when there's no learning, when there's no turning the wheel, when we fail and we hold on with all our dear might to stay in the same direction. We 100%. Keep dating the guy that's treating us bad. We keep dating the guy that's working long hours. We switch majors, but it's still not that business major we actually want to do. It's chemistry. Right. So it's very, very, very important. And what I tell all my friends to not get stuck in the failure loop,
right,
is that you have to learn from it.
You have to learn the lesson.
You got to learn the lesson. And sometimes it's a hard one.
And I look at, so when I look at either failure or discomfort or like an angst, anything that makes me less than 1000% comfortable, even if it's just like a slight irritation, I look at those things and I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to go from second grade to third grade, right? So either I can learn the lesson and move on, or I can keep in the loop, like what you're referencing, right?
And that's second grade.
and I'm going to stay in second grade. I'm going to keep dating the same guy. I'm going to keep picking the wrong job. I'm never going to quit my job. I'm going to stay in it. I'm just going to, whatever it is, I'm not going to learn that lesson. And so when
turn the mirror,
turn the mirror,
self-reflection.
Self-reflection, not because of external pressures, but the internal guidance system of your physical body. Your physical body is a walking antenna physical guidance system of where you're at on the planet. Am I happy? Am I uncomfortable? Am I, do I weigh too much? Did I eat too much sugar today? Did I drink too much alcohol? And I was just having I think I did a video about the idea that discomfort of any way, right? Irritation, stress, depression, anxiety is your siren, right? Is your siren that there is an imbalance. You're working too much. You're not working out. You're not drinking enough water. You're eating too much sugar. You're eating too much meat. You're not exercising. You haven't called your friends. You're not having enough fun. So whatever it is, there's an imbalance that's been created that is showing itself by way of your physical discomfort. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual discomfort. So that discomfort is brought into your body, into your awareness to create change, right? So there's this guy that you're dating, and every time he comes to pick you up, you get anxiety. And when you're with him, he's very critical. Why are you ordering that? Well, is that really that's what you thought you should wear out tonight? Oh, so I'm going to my mom's house, but I can't invite you yet. Wait, whatever this discomfort is. Or you go to your job and you're getting physically not feeling well. Whatever the discomfort is, it's your guidance system to recognize there's some imbalance that is happening that you are either not addressing or that you need to change physically, emotionally, mentally, humans around you, whatever, right? And so the thing of it is we need to start listening to that guidance system to learn the lesson, or we will stay in the cycle of anxiety, depression, physical, illness, whatever it is, because that is our body's only way to talk to us. That's our spiritual only way to talk to us is through these emotions of discomfort. And you got to get through it or you don't get to the next grade. And you got to keep going over and over and learning 1 + 1 is 2 all over again every day.
Got to keep failing.
Got to keep failing. Got to keep failing. Discomfort, right? And so that I think that a lot of people are not, I think a lot of people, and what's coming to me in this moment is I think a lot of people who grow up in very dysfunctional households, okay? And this, I'm speaking for myself. We get used to discomfort. We get used to the yelling. We get used to the arguments. We just get used to feeling anxious. We get used to not being happy or listened to or paid attention to or whatever. So we get used to being in a situation where we're constantly trying to regulate our nervous system, regulate our emotions, and then we start dating our parents that recreate the same exact situation for us. And then we wake up when we're 40 years old and go, this can't be normal. Or we hang around with a friend who's like a one-off and we're like, wait, you like your spouse? You don't fight all the time? Wait, you're not anxious or depressed? You're not taking anxiety or depression medications? You're not, obese? You don't drink 3 bottles of wine every night? And so we start being around people that are healthy. And then we can recognize, wait a minute, hold the phone. There's another way out there. And so I think a lot of times we get ourselves into these cycles. Jim was actually, my current husband, Jim was actually the person probably that brought the most normalcy into my life and let me realize that I didn't need to be defensive, that I didn't need to be so, on my toes, etc. And I think that we all have like glimpses of that, maybe at college or in school or sports or whatever. And I think that once we start to recognize that there's a healthier way to do life, then we can do the self-reflection and change these and make these, adjustments in our life. But I really think that people don't recognize how uncomfortable they are. I think you could actually speak to this with that,
Yeah.
with the job. You got
Yeah,
so
no.
in the job that you didn't even know how unhealthy you were becoming.
About 2 weeks after I quit, my roommate looked at me and was like, "Wow, I didn't realize how angry you were. Like how mad you. Like I forgot how nice you were." And I was like, "Yeah, I forgot what not being angry all the time was like." And
Yeah.
I feel like it literally took like everyone, me making myself sick, me having to finally look at myself and be like, you're either going to continue to be sick, you're going to continue to get anxiety attacks on your way to work, which I have never had an anxiety attack before. And so it literally took anxiety attacks, friends and family calling me out, coworkers being like, you probably they're treating you awfully. So
Yeah.
it takes a lot. It really genuinely takes a lot to sometimes rip us out of that delusion. It
Like,
sometimes takes the uncomfortable poke of a friend to be like, hey, he doesn't really treat you well,
yeah.
which is sometimes very awkward to do. But in these situations, it's sometimes necessary.
Yeah. And I mean, it is really hard because when you're in it, when you're in the imbalance, when you're inside of the
You
dysfunction,
just want to defend it.
you want to defend it. And especially, especially when you're dating the guy, you've told
All this
everybody
time
what a great,
invested.
oh, he's the greatest guy. He's the greatest. She's the greatest girl. You don't know. Your mother hates him. You don't
The
know.
job's
The
amazing,
job's
blah, blah,
amazing.
blah.
Right. And then all of a sudden there's the come to Jesus moment where you're like, it's not that great. I And now you got to, quote, eat crow because of our non-failure society that we live in and go, yeah, I actually am breaking up with them
You know
because
what my favorite line, though, is
mm,
that no one can argue with, and I use all the time?
mm,
And I still use it to my job because I don't want to even explain it. I got bored.
mm, yeah, which means I was smarter than the job, right?
I was smarter than the job.
God forbid,
I
it
was
just,
smarter than the man.
I'm smarter than the job
But
because the guy,
sometimes you just don't want to explain. Like, I don't want to sit there and go through and be like, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and I got bored.
I got bored. I like that. And you know what's funny about that statement, though, Skylar? I love it so much. Is it kind of just pours water on it.
Yeah.
It just
Like, I
makes it
got,
just disappear. Like it,
well,
and
why
no
did
one.
you get bored? I don't know. It was boring.
The relationship. I got.
Babe.
It turned beige. Yeah, I mean, but I love the idea of talking about failure because we talk about, Instagram, and we talk about the Instagram life is like one life and then reality is another thing, and we talk about all that stuff. And I think we fail to talk about our fear of failure. I think we fail to talk about the acceptance of failure and the beauty of failure and letting our kids fail drastically from, birth through age 18, and what a blessing our kids failing as,
And to
children.
this day,
Yeah.
you never let me fail and make my own bubble letters. Still can't make bubble letters.
Oh, well, that's because that's what you need me for. What the hell use am I if I
I
can't do
want everyone to know that's the only thing she would do for me. She'd be like, I'll do the bubble letters. Can't do them.
can't do them? I am, however, a professional at
Professional bubble
I am
letter.
a professional. What is that thing called? A poster board maker.
Poster board maker.
I could literally map out and do all of your bubble letters freehand,
Perfect.
freehand,
Centered.
centered perfectly. Boom. Well, you know what? This is the thing. I have always been that parent that lets their kid do their own work to a fault. Like, and then I'm the parent
Turn
that
it in
goes
a little ugly and maybe be a little embarrassed.
maybe a little
I would
embarrassed.
never be embarrassed like that again, though.
Exactly. I'm not doing it for you, right? And so, but bubble letters, I get that those are difficult to do. So I was willing to sacrifice that one allowing you to fail. But I mean, my kids write their own papers. They do everything on their own. And let me tell you what, every teacher knows that your kid didn't do it. P.S.
Oh, 100%.
Like you're not fooling anyone. The teacher knows that your parents did it, but we have to let our too many. Oh my God, this is a whole nother hour. Too many parents take their kids' failures from them.
Oh, the worst.
You cannot
It's
steal.
the first through fifth place trophy.
You can't steal your kids' failures. You cannot steal them. If your kid is not allowed to have their failures, they're going to have to then have them when they're 23, 24 years old. They won't know what to do with themselves. They didn't learn a damn thing because you brought them lunch every single day to school, their gym clothes, their homework, their iPad, their gym shoes. You brought everything they've ever needed to school.
There was no uncomfort to have to steal the little wheel for them.
None. And all people that have young kids now, I think we're seeing a shift a little bit where we're going back to a little bit more of the old school, let your kid fail, they won't die. But for a long time, the helicopter parents that make sure that every single, your kid never feels any discomfort ever, and I think that we need to stop stealing our children's failures, because when you steal a failure, you're stealing their lesson. And everything that is a lesson is a blessing for your child that they can learn from. We don't want them to have to put their hand on the stove, but if they do, granted, you're going to warn them, don't do it, but you can't stand in front of the stove 24 hours a day. You have to let your kid get their lessons. And
you'll ice it for them, but
what?
You'll ice it for them, but you're still going to do that thing.
I'll ice it. But, and time and time again, leave your bike out. Now it's rusted. Don't think through the project and, whatever it is. And so I think that we need to recognize that failures are good for us. They're a steering wheel in the right direction. Failures and lessons are good for our kids. And we need to stop being afraid to fail, or we won't ever try anything. So good.
Round of applause.
So good. Does anybody have Mark Coy? Thank you so much for being here tonight. Does anybody have any questions? Sandra, thanks so much for being here. Any questions or want to come up on stage, talk about failure before we go tonight? We appreciate everyone being here. And we are here every Monday. I am here next Monday. The next Monday is up in the air because that's when I'm going to Costa Rica, and they said the Wi-Fi is a little sketch. So I'm not really sure if I can, pull that off.
Keep it real and play it by ear.
We can keep it real and play it by ear because you never know. So yeah, I'm going on.
When's your next show on Fireside?
Next show is on Fireside is tomorrow night with Monica Morton, Strong Boss Bitches, every Tuesday at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And I don't even remember what we're talking about. I think we were talking about human trafficking tomorrow night on Strong Boss Bitches with Monica Morton and myself. It is on Fireside. Google Monica Morton and Strong Boss Bitches will come up. But thank you so much for talking about failure and lessons and all this good stuff with me tonight, Skylar. I appreciate you.
Love you, Mommy.